All right, so everybody, you're seeing something you never see before. This is Boo. She never comes out. So all our friends that have been at our house, this is Boo. She hides when everyone comes. She's not a friendly cat.
Boo Boo baby. She's very friendly.
Boo Boo, can you get up?
She's friendly with me. Here, I can hold her.
Go to mommy.
Hey, baby.
So, well, and there went that.
Yes.
So, I guess she doesn't want to be part of Growing Up Chestnut.
Our show, no?
Okay. Oh, well. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the cat show, apparently, today.
That's what our house is.
Now, this is Charlie. He's more so my cat.
Yes, he is.
He's the one that also put me in the hospital at that time. Right?
Yes, that one time.
Yes, he did. So never stick your hand in a cat fight because it just doesn't come out that good. So anyways, I'm Michael Chestnut. This is my beautiful, gorgeous, voluptuous wife, Amber. Hello. I can just say beautiful, beautiful. That's Becky. You're way better than Becky.
Yeah, voluptuous means fat.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. But that's okay. You said beautiful before it.
Maybe we should start again. Well,
why now?
So everyone, welcome to our show today. Yes. Becky is out with Bonnie.
She is. She is. A much needed vacation for her.
Yes.
I'm glad she's getting to spend some Bonnie time.
Me too. So hopefully they're having a good time.
Yes.
And me and Amber just got back from vacation.
We did.
We went to the Bahamas on a cruise. It was fun, wasn't it?
Yes, it was fun. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part, we went swimming with the dolphins.
We did.
That I'd never done that before.
No.
And there wasn't a lot of people there, so we actually got a lot of time with us.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So usually you got too many couples there that you probably wouldn't get it. So I don't know if I would do it again, but I'm glad that we did it. We did it one time, you know.
I think we would do it again if we were to take the kids or the grandkids or something. We would do it, but
that's definitely something on the bucket list.
Right.
So, well, anyways, we're going to talk today. We want to talk a little bit about. Me and Amber are almost empty nesters.
Almost. Yes.
We got Prince John. We're trying to push you out the door a little bit. Just don't tell him that, okay? But no, we're almost empty nesters, and we're living our best life right now, aren't we?
We are.
But it's funny because when you marry, from divorce and stuff, me and Amber both are divorced, and when you get married, you marry everybody.
Yes.
You know,
the whole family, and you got the good, the bad, and the ugly. You get it all.
Yes. And you guys know who my dad is. And if you met my brother, hey, so I definitely got the better end of the deal with it. But Amber has 2 kids. Holly's her oldest one, and then there's John, better known as Prince John. That's what me and Holly has always called him. And I don't know how they're not my kids.
I don't know how either.
Because like John has always had my sense of humor.
Yes.
And he always, from day one, John understood my sarcasm. Mm-hmm. So if I was sarcastic about something, which if you know our family, you know that we have a big tendency to be sarcastic. John picked up on that right away. Now Holly, she wouldn't get it. So here's John 5 years old, and John he would roll his eyes and have to explain it to Holly. Everything went over Holly's head. Holly should have been a blonde.
Should have been.
She should have been a blonde.
She is now, actually.
She is, but is she today?
Trina made her one, yes.
Trina made her a blonde. Okay. So the thing that there's one of my favorite stories about John, and I don't even think John remembers this because he was so young. Here in the South, they have CC's Pizza. CC's Pizza is an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Okay. Well, first off, you got to know John. John is food is John's love language.
Yes.
Food is John's love language.
Always has been.
Yes. And so with that, CC's Pizza and Red Lobster was his favorite restaurant. CC's Pizza was more in our budget because when you went to Red Lobster, what age was he when we did his birthday?
I think he was 7.
And that dude ate.
He wanted the Admiral's Feast.
He ate a 23 meal, and there was nothing
Yes.
left when he
No.
was done with it.
No.
And I remember one time we took him to an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet, and
That
about
had crab legs.
3 hours later, we're all done eating, and John is still eating crab legs.
Yes.
So
he could definitely eat more than his weight in crab legs.
yes. But so we took John to CC's Pizza one time. Now, John is notorious for throwing us under the bus. One of my favorite stories with John was when Mom was alive and we were at Mom and Dad's house and someone had cut Mom and Dad off. And actually, I think they told Mom she was number one, if you get my drift. And they were talking about it. And John was young and John goes, "Oh, my mommy, you should hear her when they do that to her. You know what she does?" And Amber's like, "Okay, it's time let's talk about something else." But of course, my dad, if you guys know my dad,
Yes.
Dad likes to egg it on.
Yes.
And Dad eggs on John. And so what was it John said?
That with what I said?
Yeah.
So I was taking him to school one day and a lady cut us off. And so he said, "Yeah, my mom, she said, that stupid girl." And I was like, whew.
Yes, Amber was sweating it.
That was a good day. That was a good day.
Yes. Yes.
But yes, I never knew what was going to come out of his mouth, and especially around your parents, because I think they bribed him a little with some
food.
Vienna
sausages.
And Hershey Kisses.
Yes.
Always. Those two things, I'm pretty sure still to this day, are each of those things in that house.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So we go to CC's Pizza
Mm-hmm.
and we're sitting there. And I remember me and John went to the buffet, got our food, and Amber then when we came back and got our food, Amber said, "Watch my purse." And she went up to get her pizza. And while she's gone, all of a sudden I see John's eating and he stops eating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you, there's a problem. And this is where John's like a chestnut. If a chestnut stops eating, there's a problem, right? Well, John quit eating and I'm like, what's going on? I look at my glass, and so I'm kind of exaggerating stuff, but not really. I tell stories like my mom, but I swear it's like Jurassic Park. The glass was beating, and I look out of my side vision, peripheral vision.
Mm-hmm.
I used the big word. All of a sudden, I see this 500-pound woman. Now, you have to understand, though, John is about 5 years of age at this time.
Right.
So John has never seen a 500-pound woman before. Okay, so when John sees this woman, his eyes get big. And the gerbil is running up here, right?
Yes.
And you could see John is ready to say something. Well, Amber's not at the table. And I'm trying. Now, Amber's like my mom. Amber has an evil eye. And just like my mom, I still get the evil eye more than anybody from Amber. But I'm trying to give John the evil eye. And I looked at him like, I mean, at this point, I'm kind of like, I'm trying to make anything work.
Right.
And he's looking past me. So
I'm
even like doing the I Dream of Genie. I'm like, trying to get to
attention.
him. I'm doing telepathy, like, do not talk, do not say a word, John, and none of it's working. John's looking. As the lady passes us, and I mean, this lady, I'm not trying to make fun because of her, but he's never seen a woman that size before. And she was really big.
Yes.
And she was like grabbing air to get, I mean, she was exaggerating her walk and everything, getting
Right.
there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's John going to say? Because John is known to not to not hold his tongue. Okay. And she passes by and John doesn't say nothing. I'm like, and I mean, I'm doing a sigh of relief, but as I'm doing a sigh of relief, I see what's behind her. So it's like the Far Side cartoon. You ever see that one where the lady's putting up the picture of the lost dog and it's stuck in her crack where she sat on it? Well, that was this woman's husband. All of a sudden, right behind her is little Vern. And Vern is a toothpick wearing a wife beater shirt, plaid shorts, black socks, sandals. He's got two pieces of hair on top, and he's probably got two teeth. Okay. The
Oh,
funniest, ill built person you've ever seen, right? That was all John had. That's
right.
all John could do.
Right.
John grabbed that table from both ends and he leaned in and looked at that guy and goes, boy, you sure are funny looking. And I'm like, no. Well, Big Bertha stops. She's like, "Arr!" And she turns around like, what'd you say? You know, I'm like, John, she can kill both of us. So she gives us a nasty look. He's like, and he walks off, you know. And I'm like, well, you know, John goes eats his pizza. Now,
Right.
me, I'm like, I just saw my life flash before my eyes.
Right.
Amber comes to the table and she's like, what's wrong? She sits down. I go, well, don't look, but behind you, there's this lady. Well, what does Amber do? Her, you know, like looking at
I don't
you.
think I was that quite dramatic
Oh,
about turning around.
You are. Okay. She can be dramatic. Okay. So, anyways, she turns around and I'm like, Amber, and I tell her what just happened. And Amber's like, well, did you tell him that? I go, I was giving him the EY, everything. All of a sudden, Amber turns in, my wife turns into Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry. And she's like, you did what? You said what? I've raised you better than that. And then she goes into the Hillbilly Bear dad and she's like, what's wrong with you? You're mumbling. I'm like trying to, what's she saying? John said something. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I don't know. I have no clue to what you said, but he understood every bit of it. And he was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You better never do that again. It's like, go ahead and make my day. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was a little, I think I tinkled a little bit in my pants that day. You know, you scared me a little bit. So, anyways, you know, we go to eat. Now, this isn't where the story ends. This is where you know there's truly a God because God has a great sense of humor, right?
Yes.
And he wants to test us all the time. We're eating, and right past Amber and John is the door, and I can see who's coming in the door. Coming in the door in a wheelchair is this guy with dreadlocks. He's got a white guy with long dreadlocks. Okay. First off, white people really don't look good with dreadlocks.
Not really.
Okay. He's wearing.
Sorry if you have any.
Yes. But he's Jeannie Noble. You don't have dreadlocks. Anyways. So he's got dreadlocks, which John's never seen.
Right.
But he's in a wheelchair and he has what I think it's the correct term, right? Elephantitis.
Yes.
Okay, so elephantitis it's a circulatory thing, right?
It is, and swelling, and it's very painful.
His legs were very huge, and you could only see the top of his toes.
Yes,
and
they're purple. Like it looks like it is in.
It's bad,
terrible pain. Yes,
and I'm not making fun of that disease because that is a very painful.
Yes.
Disease that, but you got to understand, I've got a 5-year-old boy here who just saw a toothpick and couldn't handle it. Now he's got this guy with dreadlocks and elephantitis of the legs in a wheelchair. Pushing him in the wheelchair is this woman
in a dress,
yellow. I remember, yellow dress, miniskirt, with a full beard and an Adam's apple. Okay. Next to her man that was walking with her was a well-dressed guy who's wearing black. Mm-hmm. Very nice, but he was missing an arm. Now I have 3 people who have never been in John's wheelhouse. And I know how God works. In this restaurant, there's only two couples. There's us, and then Bertha and Vern are sitting over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know out of this whole empty restaurant, they're going to sit right there, right next to us.
Yes.
I think at this point, you now see them coming because the
Yes.
guy in the wheelchair pulls up right next to the table, right next to the chair by John. Now, at this point, John hasn't seen him. I'm like, well, maybe we'll get lucky. And John, because John loves food, maybe John's not going to see.
Maybe he's involved in his pizza.
Yeah, maybe he won't see it. Nope, this guy has to pop a willy right there and do this fancy thing. And
Right.
so John's like, cool, you
Right.
know, looking. And I
Yeah.
got to understand, John's 5 or 6 years old at this time. John, oh, that's cool. And then John sees the dreadlocks. And he's like, and you see his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? The gerbils quit eating. They started running.
Right.
And then John looks down and sees this guy's feet. And John's eyes are about to pop out of his head. And he's like, he looks at his feet and then he looks at us. And he looks at this guy. But then he sees the woman with the beard.
Yes.
And John's like, so John's like, now the other gerbil is wide awake.
Right.
And they're both on that wheel just turning. And you can see it in John. And I'm like, oh, crap. And then John looks and he sees the one-armed man. And people, we're not making this up.
No.
We are not making this up. The one-armed man. And you can see John going 1, 2, 3. Well, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. And you just see John putting it together that dude's missing an arm.
Yeah.
You know? And now John's going from there to this dude to this dude. He's looking. He's got this pizza sitting right here. And he's looking at us. And at this point, Amber and I both are doing we both got the evil eye. We're like looking at him. Amber's like, Amber can't do her Clint Eastwood right now because, you know, they would hear
They're
it.
sitting at the next table.
Yeah. So we're sitting there just like doing all this. I'm doing Bewitch at this point. I'm even doing my nose trying to get John, don't talk, you know, and don't say nothing. And John takes one last look. He looks at the guy with the elephantitis leg. And I remember he just looks at it. He looks at his dreadlocks. He looks at the female over there with the beard like, wow. And then he's just really steady on that guy's missing arm like, where'd it go? And then John's like, looks back at the legs and he looks at us. Got this one pizza here. And then he looks one more time again. And we're like, no, don't do it, John. Don't do it. We're both like, Amber's marking her exit so she's going to grab him and run out, right?
Yes.
And John takes that pizza and he looks back at us. He goes, you know what? And we both went, before we could say, no, he goes, you know what? This is good pizza, isn't it? And we're like, oh, you know,
yes.
Oh, there is a God, you know,
yes.
He survived us. We get out. So Amber shoves pizza in and we're like, yes, this is great pizza. We shove all this pizza in him and we get him in the car and we don't get him buckled in. We get in the car and he goes, he had held it back as long as he
possibly could.
And he was like, okay, I got to know what's their story. So we had to sit in the car and Google elephantitis. Well, we didn't even have that back then. So we were like telling them what elephantitis was. And
we had blackberries and I don't think we could like search anything.
Yeah. And we were talking about, I remember because I would have to take John to school at 6 a.m. every morning. And he was talking about that one arm.
You loved that. That was your favorite time with him.
Because I'm not a morning person. And John's like his mom. John would not shut up in the morning. And then John would go, what did I say? Are you listening? But we're on the way. So is that next week we're on the way. And John would fixate on that guy that lost his arm. So John's like, you can live without an arm? I go, yeah. I'm driving the car. And he goes, now you can live without a foot? I'm like, yeah. And John's just like trying to figure all this out. Because, you know, he lost this tooth and got some money from the tooth fairy. I wonder what you get with an arm, you know? And then John goes, so what if I lose my head? Can I survive without my head? I'm like, no, but you're about to lose your head, you know? I'm like, ugh. And so John would quiz me every morning, but that was just out of his wheelhouse. And, you know, I taught at the prison. I was a transition teacher. So when guys would leave the prison, I would help them to get their life back together. And one of the things I would share this story all the time with my guys. And I would tell them, I was like, because the incredible thing is with this 5-year-old boy was that he learned a lesson that quick and his behavior changed that quick.
Right.
Because I was dealing with guys at the prison who, these grown men, they were like John, but they would never learn from their mistakes, you know? And it's like, you can't figure out why you're still in prison. Well, because you robbed somebody again. That's why. You think maybe you need to learn that doesn't get you where you need to go. So maybe you put the gun down and you don't rob someone. That's just a noble thought, right?
Right.
So I used John's story a lot with the guys in prison about how to use critical thinking and change that, you know, with it. So, you know, Prince John did serve me some good stuff and all that. No, Patrick. Oh God. Our animals. He already moved the camera. See? No.
Patrick, lay down.
John, call your dog. Oh, this is lovely. This is our. I married my mom would never let me hardly ever have a pet growing up, but we did. We got rid of them. And then I married into the Humane Society family.
He'd probably like dinner. Can you feed him?
So we're doing a podcast, people. So anyways, we had 6 animals at one time.
We did.
Now we're down to 3. We have a dog and we have 2 cats.
Yes.
So that's where we're at.
Yes.
Apparently he doesn't want to. Don't worry about it. So anyways, you know, though we can't do all this about Prince John. We got to also talk about Holly Marie. Holly, I can't let you go, baby. Holly was so funny. One of my favorite.
I tried, baby girl.
One of my favorite stories with Holly was Holly knew how to push her mom's button, you know, and with our kids, you got to really learn your kids' language because they all speak different language.
They were both very different.
Like, yeah, John, you could snap your finger at him and he was sensitive, you know. Holly, you could hit her with a 2x4 and she'd be like, that all you got? Holly had that shoulder that always went like that. Well, there's one thing that Amber doesn't like. Amber cannot stand for you to slam a door.
Yes.
And one day Holly slammed her bedroom door and Amber goes, girl, I tell you, you got one more time of slamming that door. And I'll tell you what. Well, Holly wanted to know what she would tell her. So Holly opened that door and slammed it. Next thing I know, Amber flies off the couch. I don't even think your feet hit the ground. She was down the hall. Now I'm waiting for it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is World War III is about to take place. And I'm like, but I don't hear nothing. I don't see nothing. I'm like, what's going on? Next thing I hear Holly going, no, Mom, not that. And I'm like, I don't hear like her using a belt or anything. And Amber's not even saying a word. That's what's scaring me even more. Okay. Next thing I look and I see Amber walking down the hall carrying Holly's door and she's got it. And I'm like, ooh, crud, you know? Well, as soon as Amber gets done with that and she comes back and sits down, she goes, you know what I did? I go, yeah, I know what you did. And Amber never believes me. So I get quizzed. This is where John gets it. She goes, well, what did I do? I said, you took her door off the hinges and brought it down, which I was impressed. I don't even know how to take a door off a hinge. And she goes, you mean you saw me taking that door and you didn't come help me? I was like, I was afraid to get involved. My door might come off next. But anyways, Holly goes, can I come out and talk to you guys? And she comes out. She goes, when do I get my door back? She goes, I keep looking at my doorknob and I go to get it. And it's not there. Remember, we're cracking up.
Yes.
You know, we're like,
it was quite the dramatics.
We're like, well, you're not getting your door back until your mama says you get your door back. And so I think it was like a month.
It was a long time.
But Holly makes this makeshift door that night. She takes her hamper, her laundry hamper, puts it there, puts a chair, puts a poster right there to try and make some kind of privacy with her door. John, once again, 5, 6 years old, walks by and he goes, hey, Holly. He stops at her door and goes, hey, Holly. And she goes, what? He goes, I like your door. And then he goes, ha ha, and he just struts off. And all he's like, ah. Well, me and Amber hear it in the living room, and we are just dying laughing because that's just how it always was.
Right.
John, nothing ever really phased him with that stuff. And he would be funny. She got grounded one time from her phone and everything, and he was trying to console her in the car, and he's like, Murray was young. He goes, well, Holly, why don't you just call your friend? Maybe that'll make you, oh, that's right. You can't.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
all this. And then Holly goes, well, what if I want to watch the news? And John's like, girl, you watch the news? You know, stuff like that. It was.
I know. I don't even know where he got all these little witty comments he used to make all the time.
He always kept us on our toes.
Always
Though. But he always had, and that's why it's hard to believe this boy has not got my DNA in him.
Right.
Because of how he does it. But, you know, as Holly gets older, Holly gets so much more like me too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's funny. And she has little baby Delilah.
Mm-hmm.
And Delilah is so cute, but she is full of sass. Holly is going to reap everything she sowed with that little girl. Let me tell you, it's just what it's going to be. But, you know, I was telling that story about John, and then with Holly too, it takes me back because, you know, one of the things me and Becky talk a lot about are Dad's mission conferences that he had. You know, he had a lot of mission conferences.
Right.
And this was back, I think, before even the Nobles started coming to that mission conference. I can't remember. But I think it was because when it first started, it was just like 3 missionaries, something like that we had in for this mission conference and everything. And, you know, you got to get up pretty early to outwit the Chestnut family.
Mm-hmm.
Our family's very witty. Our humor is very funny. And I remember like one guy, he was just always talking about his kids, and they were doctors and how smart they were. And here's those Chestnut kids. We were not doctor material. But I remember he looked at Greg and he goes, Greg, let me ask you, son, what is God's vocation for your life? Now, you got to understand, I think Greg's 10 years old at this time. And you got to know my brother. My brother has the driest sense of humor. Greg can say something with a straight face, and nobody, and you don't know if he's joking or not unless you know him.
Right.
And I remember Greg looked at this missionary when he asked him what God's avocation for this 10-year-old boy's life is, you know, and Greg doesn't put his fork down, and he just said, I really feel God's calling me to be a Christian alcoholic. Dad loses it. Dad falls out laughing. Now, the only one that didn't find this stuff funny was Mom.
Your mom.
Because Mom was always the hostess. And she's like, Roy? And Dad's just cracking up. Because first off, this missionary, he earned that one, right?
Correct.
So, so he did that. But I remember one time we were out. One thing we couldn't do when we were young was there were certain shows back in the 70s, which my wife, that you were born in the late 70s. So I've got a young bride here. But in the 70s, they had a show called Three's Company with
I remember Three's Company.
Jack Ritter and Susan Summers and that. And it was very risque and everything in it. I mean, I watch it. If you watch it now, it's
the neighbors were always.
It was always innuendos about sex.
Right.
That's what it was, you know, and it was a controversy back then because there really hadn't been a show yet. And that was one of the first shows about it. So we were not allowed to watch it. Well, also, I mean, I was young.
Right.
You know, so I was very young. And I remember we mission conference again. We go out and we're at a restaurant. And this missionary thinks he's being funny. And he's like, so, you know, here I am. I'm John. I'm like a little John. I'm 5 years old, 6 years old. And he goes, well, Mike, tell me something, son. Are you married? And he thought that was funny. And he's laughing. And I'm like, that's funny to him? I'm like, I'm 6 years old. What's funny about that? And I went, no, sir, I'm not married. I said, I'm not married yet. I said, I believe in living with a woman before we get married. And my mom, first off, my dad was eating a steak and about choked on it. Because where did their son come from? Right. You know, come up with this.
Right.
And Mom was like, she's dying.
Right.
He don't know what he's saying. And I'm like, I had been sneaking down when Mom and Dad were out of town. Becky, Greg, and I would sneak in and we would watch Three's Company because all our friends were talking about it. Everybody was watching it except for the pastor's family, you know.
Right.
So we would watch it. And there was an episode about this. And the guy goes, "Oh, son," like that at me. I go, and Mom goes, "He doesn't know what he's thinking, what he's saying." I go, "Sure I do." And Mom, I go, "I mean, Dad looking under the hood first, right?" And I mean, my dad, then again, he's like, now that whole steak is gone. He's
Right.
like, they're having to do the Heimlich on Dad, you know? And Mom, I remember Mom kicked me under the table, which Mom kicked me a lot under the table.
I've done a few kicking under the table as well.
So Mom kicked me under the table. I said, "What?" I go, "You don't buy shoes without trying them on first, right, Mom?" I have no clue
what any of this
what
means.
any of this means, what I'm saying. It's something that was on Three's Company. And my mom and dad were devastated. I mean, how do you follow up with that? You got these missionaries. What can you say?
Right.
And I don't even think I got in trouble. I don't remember getting in trouble. I think Becky and Greg got in trouble because it was obvious we were sneaking downstairs watching this. And, you know, I was too young to make any choices.
Right.
So I think they got in trouble more than anybody else did with that. But, you know, that's how it is, you know?
Right.
And that's the joy of raising kids. And you guys, you all have these same stories, you know, about your kids and what they do. I one of my favorite videos is me and Rory. Yeah, when we went on date night.
Oh, that was so sweet.
You know, I'll have to send you a link
night was
of it.
So sweet.
But I you know, when they're young.
Went to Beef O'Brady's, didn't you?
Yeah, we went to Beef for wings because
she loved wings.
She loved wings. I loved wings. And she loved her Uncle Mike.
Yes.
And so we did a date night. I'll have to put a link for that video because it's hilarious.
It is hilarious
to watch, you know. But kids are great, you know. But you definitely reap what you sow. And John has been that for me because there's been many times. I remember we went to, it was Nathan's graduation. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And this pastor.
I don't know if you should say this story.
This pastor comes up. Well, it's not bad. This pastor comes up. Kind of.
It's kind of bad.
Very staunch. And he pats John on the back. John is, once again, very young. Pats John on the back. John doesn't even know what any of these words mean. Yeah. And he pats John on the back and goes, "How so, Mike? Is this John?" And John goes, "Yeah, I'm not gay, you know." The last thing a minister wants to hear when he touches a little boy, right?
Right.
And I'll never forget. I was dad, and I'm like, whatever I was eating went spit out everywhere. Right. Amber is across the fellowship hall, and her radar ears catches us, and she's devastated, and she's like, "John," you know, going after him. And our kids just do that. We have a grandbaby, Delilah. Mm-hmm. And I love that little girl with all my heart. And you know what, Holly, if you're watching this.
Holly always watches us.
I want to make sure you hear this, Holly, okay? She's your little John. You are going to reap so much with that little girl. And I'm going to help her. Because that's my pride and joy. I am let me tell you, me and Delilah, we already get in trouble together.
You do get in trouble together.
So I love her. But, you know, it's family stories like this, though, that are so fun. These are great memories of things that's happened in life, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, as now our kids are grown and they were my stepkids, but honestly, I don't think I could love them anymore if they were my kids.
Right.
Just great kids. John, so proud of the man he's become. Mm-hmm. And Holly, what a great mom she is.
She is a good
worker
mom. Mm-hmm.
And everything, you know. And
yes.
so
and she doesn't slam any doors.
She will not slam a door to this day.
No. No.
Hey, neither. Well, I won't say neither do I. If I ever want to get I know if I want to push her buttons, slam
You
the door.
haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, because I can't run fast anymore.
You used to
I
slam
used
a
to
door.
slam that door and
Or
I'd run.
or a cabinet door. You used to slam a cabinet door too. I think you got that from your mom. Didn't your mom used to slam cabinets?
Yes. Dad would be like, you missed one.
Yeah.
So, anyways, well, everyone, thank you so much for watching us on here today with this. Growing Up Chestnut. Becky's out of town. Next week, me and Becky will be together, and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like me and Becky have
I know it's been a couple weeks. I think
got to
since
see
we've
each
been-
other
Right.
very much.
I
But,
know. I
you
miss
know,
my sister too.
so next week, me and her will be back with some more stories. And we've got some people we want to interview. So we're trying to get back together so we can do these interviews, because I
Yes.
think you're going to love these interviews, because they can tell you another side of all these stories,
Right.
because they were there with them. So
Right.
anyways, thank you guys again for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.